So let's talk about the transition blocks. So this part of the switcher on your program bus is your transition block, as is this one up here and this one here. So they're not stacked one in front of the other, but they're the same module on each ME. So transition block consists of the top row here, which selects what source types you're transitioning. So background, key 1, key 2, key 3, key 4. Then below that, we've got kind of some specialty transitions, which generally we don't end up needing to use in most of what we're doing. And at this point in your careers, we're not going to worry about them. Below that is the dissolve. So that's our number one go-to transition if we're not cutting. It's either a cut or a dissolve. Occasionally, we're going to want to do a wipe. You can see when I select wipe, I get the wipes menu on our GUI, and I could select different wipes depending on whether I wanted a heart or a star. But for our purposes, we're not really doing a lot of wipes. Standard is going to be on dissolve. Next to that is the cut button. So cut functions just as you would expect it to. It's the same as if you were to cut to the source on your program bus. If you set something on preview, like bars, and then you hit that cut button, you're going to cut to it. And I know this is probably obvious to you now because you've worked with switchers already, but I'm going to go over everything as a refresher for those people who don't remember. Next to it is auto trans. So auto trans is a dissolve because we've selected dissolve here. If we had wipe selected, auto trans would be a wipe. It's a transition duration. So you can see the duration next to it. In this case, it's 10 frames. On our keypad over here for the eMEMS, we could select MLE rate and change that duration to, let's say, 15 frames. But for our purposes, you're probably going to be working with it at, let's say, 10 frames, and they're not going to end up needing to change it. So the last component of the transition block is the T-bar, and that's for doing a manual transition. And the nice thing about the T-bar versus doing an auto trans is you have more control of it. So if you're starting to do a dissolve and suddenly you see, oh, there's some artsy little way to slow it down at the end, or you want to do let's say a slow dissolve, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, that camera's just bumped into something or whatever, I got to hammer out of it so that we don't end up with a messy shot on a show that you're working on. You have more control using the T-bar and doing it manually. What you want to remember when you're doing dissolves in a show, if you're doing them manually, is how fast or slow they need to be. And often the pace of the show or the content that you are showing is what determines how fast and artsy, slow and sensitive your dissolve is going to be. So that's the transition block.